Hey, welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. We're almost at the end of the year. Phil, I'm Dwight Patel filling in for Jackie Saxton, who's still somewhere in Hawaii. And we got Mark
That's
Unkford,
what
our
we
special.
think is the case. We're not
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, the
That's your
government's open, I'm sure.
story, and she's sticking to it. But
And we've got our special guest, Barry Donadio, terrorism expert, news commentator. I think I see you on NEWSMAX a lot now, too.
See me all over the world, and
Yeah.
have gotten to any of these places if it wasn't for you guys. You guys are probably the only and first podcast I was really ever on. It was a few years back now. I think maybe I want to
Yeah.
say 17 or so. So thanks for having me home, having me on. It's always great talking to you guys, and you could always be kind of like a little nervous when you're on live TV or live news, but I feel relaxed and right at home with you guys. So thanks again for having me.
well, you should feel relaxed because
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about what's happened to you is over the last couple of years because a lot of our viewers probably are not as exposed to some of the news outlets you're on because you are like the booker's dream, which is you are available, A. B, you are also prepared to talk about a wide range of topics. I think that's fair to say, or at least there's a security component to a lot of things that people want to talk about. Talk about some of the variety of news networks that you have had the opportunity to speak on over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think some of my fame started with writing the book about TWA Flight 800. Of course, I was a first responder to that horrible crash in 1996. So there is some celebrity status from the book itself. Also in politics, being elected to office, I was elected to Queen Anne's County Republican Central Committee in Maryland back in 2014. And every little bit counts, right? And then most recently in 2024, I received 50,000 votes in Maryland's first congressional district as an alternate delegate going to the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, ensuring that we had Donald Trump be the Republican candidate for president. I was there in Wisconsin. So every little bit helps. And then right at that same time, because I was an elected official in Milwaukee, and when President Trump was in Butler, Pennsylvania, and almost was murdered by a maniac, basically, they were looking for former Secret Service people to come and be live on television, talk about what happened. And a lot of my colleagues, I guess, are camera shy, especially on live TV. So I, stepped right up, and it was around the world. Every single country. Obviously ABC, CBS, every news channel you can imagine, even in Bulgaria, and now even in the Middle East, Yemen, Lebanon, Egypt is a big
So
one.
you've done Yemen television?
Yeah. I know a lot about the Middle East. I study the military.
Right.
I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Was that Alarabia or was that Al Jazeera or Alarabia?
Never Al Jazeera, to be honest. I'm surprised they haven't called. So just Yemenis. Alarabia is one of them. They're out of Saudi Arabia. Al Jihad, if I'm saying it correct, it's in Arabic. I'm on there a lot. There are some that I don't know how to pronounce. It's all in Arabic. They have a translator for me, but they're very nice, and they want my commentary of what I believe may, be happening. And a lot of it also is defending the president of the United States. So I would be in a debate, and you're simply defending the Trump administration and their actions and what I believe they may do in a situation. And I will also tell you, the Gaza war was another big thing. And I had probably said 1,000 times over and over and over to some of the Arabic news, which sided with Hamas. They, just couldn't get through.
So did our media, so did our media.
It was all Israel's fault. It was all Israel's fault, this whole thing. And they just simply couldn't understand. I would say on live TV, as soon as the hostages are released, the war will be over. And they would get all angry. And I said, yes, believe me, give it a try. You'll see. And sure enough, here we are. I was right. I love being right. And so does everybody else. But the hostages have been released. The war is over. There's sustainable peace. It's for one reason only. President Trump. President Trump. I'm proud to defend the President of the United States across the globe, across the world, on all live TV channels. It has been such an honor to do so. But all of those news channels been so exciting. And then NEWSMAX, and I love also BBC News is another good one too, obviously in English. And NEWSMAX is another big one. And I'll probably be on a few more coming up here in the future.
So how did you, when you were on Bulgarian television, how did that come about?
They spoke English. So yeah, they gave a call while we were at the convention, or I should say the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. They had called, and that's all up on my Facebook. I share all of these on my Facebook and social media. So if you go back to the 2024 summertime during the convention, you'll see all of these. And, they had even like a movie that created about the Secret Service. I appeared in one of those. There was like a documentary. So very interesting and very fun to take part in. So very happy.
Let me ask you a somewhat loaded question, but there's a point before it. Is how many interview requests have you turned down?
I try to do almost all of them.
That's the answer I was looking for you to get, because I think there's a really good lesson there. But continue on and explain that.
Well, if maybe I can help somebody that's interested in being a news commentator.
Right.
Be available all the time, even if it's 2 a.m, because if you're not available, then nobody needs you. Okay.
Right.
So when President Trump was shot, I had news channels calling from around the world. They wanted me to do interviews at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 1 a.m. I didn't sleep for 48 hours because I was doing, And I saw the opportunity that, well, I can wake up 2 a.m, pay the piper and do this. And it paid off. It really did pay off. So if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff and appearing on live TV, you have to answer your phone. You have to be reliable. You have to be available. And I really never say no. I've said no maybe a few times simply if I'm just driving a car and I'm 2 hours from anything.
Right.
But you're only as good as your last interview. You could do 50 in a row and be perfect. And if kind of one thing goes wrong or you're not available once or twice, they're moving on to the next person. They really are.
There's a really
list of people they call.
There's a really valuable lesson about media relations in what you just described. And I've seen it for a brief time in a number of years in my career. I was on the other side working for a media company, and I could watch the news organization and see who the news people, as broadcast property, who they would interview, and looked at it from their perspective. They didn't have a lot of resources. The person who was available for a quote, who was, accessible, and you could, you were 5 minutes away from deadline or whenever, we were broadcast. So we maybe were doing we needed an actuality, a snippet, was responsive, who could be succinct. They were the ones who got the call, and that didn't just get the call, they got the call back, because once you were in the Rolodex that you were accessible like that. And the flip side of that is, it's true, you're not, you've been a candidate, but you're not presenting as a candidate right now. A lot of candidates, they only want to be available to the media on their terms when they've got a message. They don't want to respond to a situation where they think they're going to be on the defensive and they're going to have to fight. Being available, the facts may not be great, or they may be hostile or whatever, but being available to do it, that's what gets people calls back.
Yeah, and also you also have a lot of candidates that are unwilling to do podcasts. And I think podcasting is the new kind of your gateway? I mean, some people
Yeah,
like there was this one candidate who said, "Oh, if it's not CBS, NBC, ABC, or Fox, I'm not doing it."
Well, they're missing out on a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it is Arabic, Chinese, French,
Mhm.
or English, really. You're putting yourself out there. I'm world known as an expert in many things, politics, whether U.S. Secret Service, anything that happens to a political candidate, criminal. They would
Mhm.
call me. They would call me for the Gaza war, Ukraine.
Now, how
Now,
did you get first called about Gaza?
I think just through the Arabic media, seeing that I was very articulate.
Mhm.
They kind of give you a try with certain things if they're not.
Right.
There was one time NEWSMAX was looking for an ambassador, and I said, "Well, I'm certainly not an ambassador or never was, but I do know what I'm talking about with this subject. I'm a former member of the Secret Service." And they're like, "You know what? Yeah, we're going to give you a shot." And I got on there, and I think I did well. They kept calling after that.
Right.
So you sometimes, and maybe an ambassador wasn't available. So maybe I filled the shoes. So that's so right, Mark, in saying, yeah, you do have to be available. Make yourself available if you're interested in this kind of work. They are looking, and it doesn't have to be a Secret Service guy. You could be a cake maker, and if you do that well and you have an expertise in that, they need to talk to you. They need an expert on that, and that's fine.
And there's another lesson that I think is kind of interesting from the story, which is that bookers or producers, sometimes the function is very specialized, and there's literally somebody whose job it is to find people to
Yeah.
talk, or
Right.
producers if they're not as not as well staffed. But where do they get ideas for people who can talk? They look at other media outlets.
They do.
So once you I mean, it's kind of fascinating. Who knows how Bulgaria, I mean, I don't mean to dwell on that one, but when you're on one outlet and you look presentable, whatever, you're going to get calls from other. And the same thing is true in, I think, a local context, where if you're seen quoted by an outlet, you kind of pull together the story, whatever the message is. They're gonna, hey, that's the person I need to talk to, and you're gonna get called again. So
The word gets out too.
the word gets out. Well, but
Booking-
they watch other media to get ideas as to who to talk to.
Yep, and I've gotten a few things where a booking producer that called me up just like one time for an Arabic news channel that probably wouldn't even remember. They remembered me,
Right.
and then next thing you know, I'm on another channel, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, and the connection. So they all kind of they exchange jobs too. Like you could be a booking producer for one agency, and a year later you're working somewhere else, or next thing you know, you're at NEWSMAX, and then they remember your name, and now they're looking for you to go to NEWSMAX or even BBC, something to that nature, or even ABC. So, yeah, interesting. And I will say, I would say not to fear if you're interested in this kind of work, not to fear going on and being, I guess, the beat up guy, because a lot of times I was on some of the Arabic media, and I knew for sure that I'm just there so they can beat up on the one American guy that sided with Israel.
It's like the Republican at MSNBC, or CNN. What's his name? I can't think of his name.
Yeah,
There's
but you know what the problem with
Ben
that is?
Ferguson.
You know what the problem with that is, Dwight?
What's that?
Michael Steele went native.
Yes, he did. He he basically
Sorry,
just yeah. It's kind of he's gone off the deep end.
He's gone off the deep end. But you know what? It's interesting. Let me come back to something that Dwight made that I think that I wanted to reinforce is that you said, being able to present, what have you, people I don't think sometimes appreciate when they're doing something like this, how short and how little time, how succinct they have to be able to respond. So, you don't get to talk for 3 minutes. You maybe get 30 seconds, which in rough terms works out to about 50 or 60 words. And so being able to get a complete idea out to explain yourself, and Barry, you certainly can do that quickly, where they're not having to say, wind it up, but that's one of the things that denotes you as being presentable, is being able to do that.
Yeah, it sometimes can be difficult. My mother said I should be a lawyer because I have an answer for everything.
You
So
really should have gone to law school, Barry. The
maybe
world needs a few more lawyers.
Yeah.
never too late, right? Or maybe they'll let me challenge the test and I'll just pass and be a lawyer, right? But who
There you
would
go.
want me to represent them then, right?
So
But
for all those candidates out there, the lesson here is that when Dwight Patel calls you to come on this is a really good opportunity to hone your skills to be able to make a point
Yeah.
in 30 seconds.
Well, I look, if we trace the foundations of my news commentating experience, it started with Direct Line.
Yeah.
So I would say anybody that is hesitant about coming on with you, give it a try. You know,
I mean, and we
definitely.
as you know, Barry, we've got a wide array of guests, you know, from former
Sure.
ambassadors to former governors and members of Congress and sitting members of Congress. And I think, you know, this is really the new. I mean, look at Laura Megyn Kelly, right? She got bounced out of NBC. She's got a larger audience today than she did when she was hosting the Today Show.
Yeah.
This is the future, I think, of broadcasting, frankly.
But can I warn you, Barry, about something?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. If you start praising Stalin, we're going to come down on you.
Don't worry about that.
No, I know. Just for the record, for those people who don't know Barry, that's not what I expect to hear from him.
Or that, or praising the New York Yankees, Barry. That's not
anyway. There you go. So one of the issues that you talked about that you become, media expert is on security issues, which obviously makes sense because you were with the Secret Service, and many of these appearances came as a result of the assassination attempt in Butler. What kind of questions have people been asking about that, and how have you been responding to that? What do you hear? What's out there in terms of kind of what people want to know more about?
Yeah, sky's the limit, as you can imagine, with the Butler, Pennsylvania incident. And I think people just want to know what happened and how the Secret Service can make that big of a mistake. And I try to put it from my point of view, how I see it. You know, I can call right now people that work at the White House that are in the Secret Service and probably know the answer to everything, but I don't want to jeopardize their position. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I won't do that. So, you know, I've worked there. I know how things go. I know the operation. So I say, well, it's probably this. This is probably what happened. In my opinion, I bet it was this. I bet it was that. And, another thing I'm proud of, and I know a lot of people are against me in this, but I'm one of the only people that stood up for our female Secret Service agents. And I know that that might be in conflict with some people, but you know what? The way I saw it, they did the best they could for the situation they had. And how dare anybody make fun of our Secret Service female agents? And I say, what's next? Making fun of the Marines, at Normandy or something? So, until they're shot at and they're in that situation, I would say they should really be guarded about making fun of anybody that's being shot at and trying to protect the President of the United States. So, and later, after I was protecting the female Secret Service agents for any shortcomings that were perceived, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, came out and praised within 24 hours. That is an achievement that no one can take away from me. I will always protect the Secret Service. Yes, we're not a perfect agency. They would have died trying to protect the president. There is no doubt about it. There wasn't shortcoming. And, we've seen all the reports come out from the Senate as well as the internal investigations. Not one of them were critical of our female Secret Service agents. So I was right. Ultimately, I was right. There was no investigative agency or undertaking or anything from Congress or Senate that said anything about our female Secret Service agents. However, we know crooks got up there and really what this really, to me, I think the counter snipers for the Secret Service just simply thought he was the local SWAT team sniper up there, and that's why they didn't shoot him right away. Because we have to remember, not all SWAT team snipers are clean cut with a crew cut like me, and
Right.
sometimes they could be the anti-narcotic guy that's doing drug busts, but he is also the sniper for the SWAT team that has hair very long and
Right.
dressed undercover. So I'm making an assumption here, and I don't know the certain answer, but I think they probably didn't shoot at him right away. He had a rifle that the police would use. They were told that SWAT team would be up on the roof. So I think the initial few second assumption by the Secret Service counter sniper team was, oh, that's them. They're back up on the roof. They probably noticed they were off the roof, and then they were said, oh, well, maybe they're back up there. That's them there. And then when he started shooting, that's when they repelled fire. So I really think that's what happened, to be honest. That's my best guess. Now, if I'm wrong, okay, I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
So it's interesting you say that, because a couple of, like 2 months ago, I was at an event that was very much out in the open, and the vice president and his family were there. And because of the involvement, I'm aware of the fact that there were 17 snipers around the
That was
perimeter.
the most amount of counter snipers the vice president ever had to that day.
Well, yeah, now I will, without, I don't want to, because of security, whatever, get into the specifics of that, but it was out in the open. Let's leave it at that.
Sure.
And I couldn't pick them out. I only knew that because talking with our law enforcement, I knew that that was what the arrangement was. But I'm struck how difficult it would have been to be able to precisely know. Obviously, there must be protocols to do that, but to be able to precisely know, each of, if you're a sniper, each of the other 16 friendlies, who they are.
Right. As you can imagine, it is a very difficult task. If there is a lunatic somewhere there, the Secret Service is at a zero fail mission, obviously.
Right.
And so is the space shuttle, right? So we've had mishaps with the space shuttle too, even due to weather, that nothing, nothing could have been done. So sometimes, in my opinion, the agency itself, the Secret Service itself, it's bringing it to zero, the possibility of something happen to zero or close to zero as humanly possible, right? And that is all, whether it be the Secret Service or any other protective agency for a leader, or the Praetorian Guard of Rome, or whatever it might be. There's only so much that a protective agency can do, right? And there's going to be risk no matter what. There's risk every time a U.S. president leaves the White House. There's always going, right? So, unless we drove him around literally in a tank and said, well, sir, you're never going to get out of this tank. You're just going to drive in there and wave, and that's it. Well, he'd be very well protected there. And even then there could be risk.
So the two most high profile attempts and also successful assassinations involved snipers. Right. And I must confess, my initial reaction had been with the Charlie Kirk thing. Right. I was surprised by the distances that people were, and I guess, can you maybe elaborate on that? That clearly there are people who are not necessarily military trained. Neither of them were military trained in the two incidents. Were that close? Obviously, in the case of Charlie Kirk, they were able to shoot him. Right. That basically the work of the actions of snipers are that as dangerous from what is a considerable distance away.
Right. So snipers want to be further away because they're after people that are saturated with security close in. So they want to be further away and undetected and have an opportunity. We know with Charlie Kirk, that was 200 meters, give or take. And that was a huge bullet. People still don't understand that was a 30-06 bullet. And there's not many bulletproof vests that are going to stop that either. For a 30-06 bullet, that's not a very long distance. That's an easy shot for that bullet. Mm-hmm. If the scope is sighted in correctly, and if the young man has tried shooting that gun a couple of times just to practice hitting anything, he can do that. The scope actually does the work. It's going to magnify the target greatly to almost make it easy. So he may have had very, very minimal practice. As far as covering the roofs, we have to remember, and I've said this 1,000 times, and then once I explain it, people understand this a little bit better. There are very few people on Earth that get counter sniper coverage of when they're out in the open. Let's talk about it. President, vice president, okay? Maybe some governors, maybe only a handful of mayors in the entire world. Beyond that, unless somebody is paying a lot of money for some kind of a private contracting firm, or like my private security company, to have people up there on each single roof to be a counter sniper team, they just don't have it. So we have to remember Charlie Kirk is a private individual. He had a very, very good protective detail. I looked at those guys. His main guy, I don't know his name and I don't know his credentials. I'm assuming just by looking at him and sizing him up, he's probably a former Navy SEAL, or he's probably a former Green Beret, something of that nature. And he certainly knows what he's doing. I see the stance he's in. So they're doing everything correctly. And when he was shot, they did exactly everything they were supposed to do. That's the only thing they can do, is get him out of there and get him to an ER, which they did flawlessly. Now, you're wondering, well, why didn't they cover the roofs? Well, he's a private individual. You had 6 police officers that were in that crowd also for that happening. And I know that this is tough to grasp, but in the private sector, because that's what those guys were, his protective detail were private security, ultimately, or private detectives maybe. They are not covering roofs because it doesn't elevate to that. The threat level does not elevate to that. So look, if you guys were paying me and my private security firm to protect you, and I told you, well, give me a few extra $1,000 so I can put a bunch of guys on every roof that's around you that you'll never see, and it's coming out of your pocket, you're going to say, we don't really need that. We haven't had a problem ever in 10 years. And that's the problem. A lot of people, well, look at the CEO that was murdered by in New York City. He sent his protective detail home. He had a protective detail and he sent them home, and he was left unguarded. So that's the unfortunate tug of war that I work with in the private sector, of providing executive protection and trying to explain to a client that, maybe you don't think your threat level's up, but, I have clients that are $1 million, multi-million dollar business owners, and they are a target. So you try to convince them, well, I really don't think you should do it, but ultimately they're paying the bill. And if they don't want to pay for it, they're not going to do it. That's it. So in the private, unfortunately with Charlie Kirk, it looks to me like he had like a 6-man team, but who would have thought at that point, until it happened, we needed somebody on every roof for him. And he's just a private individual. For a president, yes. A vice president, yes. The threat level's there. You can prove it. The threats are there. Okay, it's documented. Some governors, some mayors, big city, like perhaps even Mayor Adams in New York City, perhaps. Yeah. And then even then, who knows if he has it? I'm not sure. But when we get to the private individuals, that's all coming out of their pocket, and that's going to be a hard thing for them to part with that money and just say, I'm going to need a few extra $1,000. You're never going to see these security guys, but they're going to be up on some roof somewhere. And people have a hard time spending that money.
Yeah. And I know when these things happen, you always have, this from everything from covering Flight 800 to 9/11 to the Kennedy assassination, not that you would have been around for that, but
I've studied it extensively.
There's always that element of conspiracy. Like we were hearing, like the Butler, they're saying is Joe Biden tried to do, it's kind of sad and humorous and a little disturbing all at the same time.
Right.
I mean, initially they were saying, "Oh, the president probably Biden probably had something to do with this at the attempt on President Trump." It's kind of like, the rumor still floating right now that LBJ took out JFK so he could become president.
Well, LBJ was in a motorcade and could have
Yeah.
been shot. That's
Yeah.
what people. You tell that to those same people that say that and say he was. Yeah, he could have been shot too.
I didn't think you got on Air Force One that fast.
Well, we're Americans. We're all Americans, right?
Yeah.
And we're a great country. We've been a great country for a long time. And let's face it, we have a problem when our government may kind of fall short of our expectations. Let's say that. So you've heard me say this before. Look at General Custer. We lost a battle, not even the war. We just lost a battle. General Custer got killed by 3,000 Indians very fast. It was a shortcoming, ultimately a mistake, right? We're still talking about that. What was that? 1879, I believe, something like that.
If you had taken the Gatling guns with them, it would have been a different result.
Right. But what I'm saying is, whether it be that shortcoming or the loss of the Alamo, which we're still talking about, and we're still saying, well, what happened? How could that happen? We're Americans. There's no way that we can possibly lose a battle against Mexico, or there's no way that this trained American army can lose a battle at Little Bighorn against a bunch of Indians. There's no way. And now we move up to, well, we have a U.S. president and he had Secret Service with him and all Dallas Police Department. There's no way, unless it was a conspiracy, that could possibly happen. And then we're at the Trump location too. I think, anything is possible. I don't put down anybody that has conclusions for what happened with JFK. I like to listen to all of it like anybody else and take in the information. But we got to face it too. Whenever we have a calculation or miss a shortcoming is what I'm trying to say, of grandeur, we have a hard time accepting it as Americans, right? So that's where the conspiracy goes in. Or right? September 11th attack.
Yeah. And
okay, we had a military shortcoming. They got us. They sucker punched us. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And we are, we fill that void with potential. I'm not saying anything could be a conspiracy. I'm not siding one way or another, but my perception of it all is, hey, whenever we get sucker punched with a bloody nose, we kind of have a conspiracy exist for like 150 years after that. Isn't it true?
It is always astonishing when you look at the polling results for a whole variety of conspiracy theories that now I don't know. I've always wondered how this works when they're actually out asking the questions, but it's frequently astonishing. And I'm not even talking about the kinds of incidents that you're talking about. I mean, this will drive Dwight crazy because of NASA, but the people who think that the landing on the moon was falsified or it was a fiction, but the proportion of people who, if you present a potential conspiracy theory, they'll say, yeah, I think that's right.
Hey, Mark, and the scariest part, some of these are well-educated people who think the moon landing was faked. It's kind of like I remember this is actually in history class at GW. This kid puts his hand up. Didn't FDR knew the Japanese were coming? He just wanted to do that to cover the failed New Deal policies, and he needed the war to get us out of the depression.
So now you have Barry, a whole new category of topics that you can be interviewed on. You can talk about whether or not the moon landing was faked.
Well, I would like to say anything is possible, but
he goes, look at the Dwight. He takes it. Just
Pearl Harbor.
Go ahead.
From my understanding, though, I think the moonlanders put reflectors up there. So if you have a laser, they will come back. Am I correct? I think you guys know about that.
Yeah, and also
could point a laser. There's reflectors, so they can prove they were there. Unless they
there's also the flag. People say, well, how can it fly when there's no atmosphere, right? But that was a specially designed flag. it had wires, so it looked like it was flying. Then you got the other people that say, well, there's actually an atmosphere on the moon, and what was not in the shot was all the people that are living on the moon. That's the other side of that conspiracy. We've been there. There's
You,
life on the moon.
you won't find me there, or find me volunteering to be there. So a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I'll stick with the Middle East.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the conspiracies on Earth anyway.
I mean, there's like, what is it? The assassination of Anwar Sadat. There's a conspiracy that Mubarak was behind that. I mean, Mubarak got hit at the same time.
Maybe he made a mistake and miscalculated that. Who knows, right? Yeah.
Not that you're trying to stir the pot quite, right?
Yeah. But we're coming to close to the end of the program. And I know you're going to be in Prince George's County with myself and Mark actually tomorrow night.
Right.
At their dinner. And I understand you're actually going to be working there. You're not there.
You will be playing, and I will be working. Yes.
Yes. And do you find that you're getting more and more called to do these types of events where I guess 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody would take a second thought to having a high profile person? Like in Montgomery County, we had Gene Kirkpatrick as a Lincoln Reagan dinner speaker in 1993. Nobody, there was no security there. Although Gene was a little late getting there, but it was.
I mean, I just think the climate itself of the country, the political turmoil, unfortunately, helps my business. Chaos helps my business, unfortunately, right? My business, Public Security LLC, private investigation and security firm. We do executive protection as well as training people to use firearms in self-defense. And that's another.
You teach a class on that too, don't you?
We teach people how to show. I was on the shooting range for the past 2 days. So if my voice is a little hoarse, that is why. Freezing, by the way. But we created 2 good shooters out there that are able to defend themselves and their families now with their pistols. So that is another piece of the company. But yes, there has been an increase. Obviously, the shooting of President Trump did that, as well as Charlie Kirk, as you could imagine. And checking rooftops now is in every security plan with us, whether we are protecting a construction site or a high-risk client. It's just, and that's what the public demands, right? So we're at that level right now where you better have an answer for me if you're running a protective detail for my executive protection firm. Okay, who checked the roof? What's up there? Where's the access? How are we denying access? So all of that has to come in play now because of what happened to Charlie Kirk. That's where we are in the private sector executive protection at this point. Now we can, that can never be overlooked ever again because of what happened.
I mean, I've noticed in the last 10 years, we've also started, I know over at NIST, over at NASA, we've had active shooter drills where, and I'm assuming you probably get called to do those drills, conduct those drills, and so on.
We are, I'm proud to announce that we protect some religious facilities. I don't want to get too specific. All over the state of Maryland, we are protecting places of worship from active shooters. And that means myself, I'm still an active protector. I'm still an active private detective, and I work beside the people that work for me. I'm no better than anybody else. I take the worst driving car, so my people don't have to drive it. I drive the worst car in the fleet, but I can be protecting people, and I could lose my life. Any of my people can lose their life protecting worshipers to an active shooter. That is what we're there for. We serve with pride and honor, and we love our job. The people that work with me love the job as well.
Yeah, I know. Like when my house got broken into, you were like the first person I called. Actually,
I remember that. Yeah. And so gets me angry, right? Steals anything from you. What an angry thing gets you so angry. Get cameras. I'm telling everybody.
Oh, it's like Fort Knox now.
Better get cameras everywhere. You can't be on my property anywhere without being on some video, somehow, some way. We're definitely, and we're going to figure out who you were. Believe me, or But yeah, we're at a level at this point. Just get the cameras, be safe, and legally possess firearm to be able to protect yourself. That's your constitutional right.
That's
Even
right.
in Maryland, you can now get a wear and carry unrestricted for your pistol. Do it legally. Make sure you're buying it through a gun shop, getting properly trained, and do that. That's how right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Supreme Court made that decision in 2022. So all Marylanders can do that. Just go through the state police. It's very user friendly, and they'll issue you a license.
Yeah, and you also walk people through the process of the permitting thing. I remember you did because there's a lot of paperwork in filing for that permit too. And I know you do
an application process on the Maryland State Police website, fingerprints, background investigation. So they're going to look into all that as they should. And you're also going to be buying a pistol legally from a sanctioned gun dealer. And but I recommend that. But yeah, the company has picked up quite a bit recently, unfortunately, because of what happened to Mr. Kirk. Is terrible, and even President Trump.
So Dwight, we're going to be in Prince George's County. What else do we have coming up?
We've got our Christmas party coming on December 7th. Barry, I hope you and your daughter.
But I need go ahead.
December 7th. Pearl Harbor. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Roosevelt knew about the Japanese coming. He just wanted to basically needed the war to save his failing socialist policies. Got to get that in. But we've got our state party convention coming up on
See me there.
December 5th and 6th over in lovely Towson, Maryland. I don't think we've ever had a convention in the last 20 years or 25 years since I've been involved in Towson, Maryland.
Well, I want one on Kent Island.
I would love to have one in Ocean City. We haven't been to Ocean City in like 5 years now.
I like the Ocean City one. I can't complain about that. But
Kent Island, I tell you, where we had the Chesapeake Charities event, that'd be a great place for a convention, but I don't think it'd hold us all.
It's big enough, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can work something out. We can find something. We sure. It's very beautiful here. It's the jewel.
You got the really big hotel on Kent Island also that could host. But
Yep. Yeah. So we should do that. We can make that recommendation.
So Barry, where can people find you online if they need your services for everything from filling out forms?
Type in my name, Barry Donadio, on an internet search, or barrydonadio.com. I have a website. Public Security LLC is the name of my company. You can do any search anywhere, find either my company or myself very, very easily. Very accessible. There's a lot out there. I'm in the public realm now. When I was in the Secret Service, at times I didn't even have a cell phone. Couldn't find me. I was completely off the grid. So it's nice to be out amongst the people and be public, and so easy to find. Just look me up. Yep.
So Mark, do you have anything else?
No, it's been a great conversation. Really, great,
Barry. We
great
look forward to seeing
Barry.
you. And when we're in at the convention in Towson, we're going to drive over to Missoni's afterwards. Have you ever been to Missoni's?
That sounds like a very nice food place. Is that right?
Yeah, it's Greg Missoni.
Before we go, I got to tell you and the audience, okay? I gave up sugar, pasta, and bread in an effort to stay a little bit thinner. I've lost 34 pounds since April. Just doing
Congratulations.
that. Actually, yeah, it's to be honest, it's been hell. So I was happy when I was eating bad food, but I'm certainly thinner, and little by little, it doesn't come off quick either.
Yeah.
So if I go to your restaurant and eat, I'll be in a lot of trouble.
No, you can find a lot of non-carb-free food.
Non-tasteful food?
No, then you get like carb-free food there. Yeah.
Carb-free food. Okay, I'll look for that.
Yeah. But Missoni's, wonderful restaurant. Check them out. They're out in Perry Hall, Maryland. Great place, owned by a great family, the Missoni's,
I'm sure it's delicious, though.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
Good. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you guys next week. Take care. Good night and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Great.
If you're not watching next week. Good night.
cuisine.